It's 18 minutes past 7. Uber says it's suspending its self-driving cars in North American cities after a fatal accident. A 49-year-old woman was hit by a car and killed as she crossed the street in Tempe in Arizona. US police say the car was in autonomous mode at the time, but that a vehicle operator was behind the wheel. Here's what Uber's CEO, Dara Khosrowshahi, had to say.
This now highlights how challenging it is for firms like Uber to balance this drive to make new technological advances while being concerned about the safety of the public.
Dr. Kevin Curran of Ulster University's Computer Science Research Institute is with us. Kevin, very good morning to you. We should remember that there are 40,000 vehicle deaths in the USA every year, but one with an autonomous vehicle attracts a lot of headlines.
It does, and even last year there was just under 6,000 pedestrian fatalities in the US, all involving human drivers. So while we should be concerned about the safety of self-driving cars, we should be terrified about human driving.
And the other point made by the police in Tempe is that this woman seems to have walked out of a shadow into a main road, and they say that any vehicle would have had trouble stopping in time.
Exactly. The police chief, because they've looked at the video footage, of course, and they said that she came out of the shadows and any car would have been really anyone in the driver. And of course, these cars, when they're on the road, they all have to have a driver in the vehicle. And these testers need a full license and understand the automated technology, and they have to act as if they are not in driverless mode at all times. And of course, this vehicle had that driver on board, and this still happened. So again, that we're just still perfecting the technology. That no one is saying that it's there yet. That these cars, I mean, it's so difficult to drive to even as a human, of course, to anticipate all the things that can happen, and we have to adapt to weather conditions and changing light and shadows and animals running across the road. So, of course, it's not unreasonable that we'd expect that these things will happen. It's just a question of, in the long run, will self-driving cars be more safe? Will they be safer than humans? And again, will the benefits outweigh the negatives?
It must also be about perception. I mean, there is still this resistance factor, isn't there? To people thinking this car doesn't have a driver. How could it be safer than one that does?
Exactly, but again, the computers and the sensors on board of these cars are quite exceptional. That they have this LiDAR radar system which is able to map the road in 3D. They have cameras, of course, which are able to detect objects, detect humans, detect traffic lights, and of course the software on board, the camera systems, the recognition is getting better all the time. The mapping of the roads is getting better, and all these cars generally share the information. So therefore, if a car is going down the road on one particular day and it breaks suddenly, that information is passed back to the central software system. And then it looks to see what happened, why did the car break, and then of course if they see that conditions have changed in that particular junction or wherever that is, that these things get rolled out. But of course that takes time for these things to roll out for every single road, for every single situation. But as we know, technology always gets better. But again, there is very strict legislation again, and the UK is moving forward trying to become one of the leading places in the world for autonomous cars, and of course some of the legislation is still trying to catch up, but there are many rules involved with cars being onto the road, and of course a lot of them have been in more confined conditions. Again, that the Google is another company which is doing this for a long time. They've racked up millions of miles driving around the Californian roads, but of course then you have to translate that into other countries, into other conditions. But and I don't want to be seen like an apologist again, because it's generally 1.16 humans die for every 100 million miles. Now, autonomous cars have not done 100 million miles yet, and already we've had one death. But again, that there's a lot of weight behind this move towards autonomous cars, because there's a lot of benefits again, and to have this, because a lot of our mileage or our petrol is used up looking for a car parking space. And when you have autonomous cars, you can be dropped off at a shop, they can drive to the edge of the town, park there, and come back and collect you.
Challenges ahead. Kevin Curran from Ulster University, thank you very much indeed.
Well, lots of you will already have enjoyed your breakfast this morning, courtesy of the food.